This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have my first streamer. KittyPlays is what most people know her as, but I actually know her as Kristen Michaela.
Yes.
I don't know which one's cooler. They're both great names.
Thank you. For different areas of the world. You know,
Yeah.
you can't go buy a gamer tag as Kristen Michaela. So,
Well, before we started, I was talking about, my experience in technology and sports and business, and I have never seen a wider divide of awareness of something so big. Right? When there's a trend or a new sport, everybody is talking about fantasy when fantasy came up. Right?
Yeah.
If you said fantasy football, whether they did it or not, they knew what that was.
right.
Well, here's something that's bigger than fantasy football, bigger than all fantasy sports, something called esports.
Yes.
And it is an extraordinary phenomenon that I believe will be the biggest sport in the world. And that's because it crosses all barriers. When I say that, whether cricket is large, it's only large in certain places to certain people. Soccer, even, the biggest sport in the world right now, is still for certain people in certain places.
Yep.
Esports is worldwide and has a connectivity that none of the other sports have ever had. And that ubiquitous sport is an extraordinary phenomenon. I want you to explain in your terms, because people ask me all the time, what the heck is esports?
So that's a great question, and that can go many different ways. And
Good. Go any way you want. This is your show.
As the industry is evolving, I think it is finding some splitting up that's happening. But esports is competitive gaming online. It covers a huge swath of games. There's none in specific that really have succeeded over others even. I think Fortnite's made a really big step into things, but even then they don't call themselves an esport. It's
Right.
competitive Fortnite because they really want to separate themselves from things that are happening. But it transcends all ages. Everyone can access it. You see mobile games especially really popping up across the world, and leagues are forming now.
How many people do you think play in that realm?
Millions and millions and millions. I'm sure we could ask our
More
stat
than
guy
any
later.
other sport. Don't you think it's probably more than any other sport now?
More than any other sport. Well, the interesting thing about esports is you're grouping a huge group of people. There's some people that like to play mobile games. There's some people that like to play PC games, but then within each realm, there's so many games within it. You have millions of players on Fortnite. You have millions of players on Dota, on Counter-Strike, on Clash of Clans, especially Clash of Clans, which is really popular in China, actually. But
My favorite thing, I've one son who's 9, huge Fortnite kid.
Yep.
And the EA stuff, of course, but mostly Fortnite.
Yeah.
And then I have teenage daughters, which are on the mobile side, playing all types of different things. But I love the fact that I'll walk by and the skin that my son is playing is a girl skin.
yeah,
And I ask him, like, dude, why did you choose that one? And he's like, because it's the coolest skin. There is this connectivity that's occurring because, whether you are athletic, tall, skinny, fat, strong, weak, blue-eyed, brown-eyed, white skin, black skin,
Old,
yellow
young.
skin, old, young.
from Europe or South
And
America.
you can make yourself to be whatever you want yourself
Yeah.
to be in that world. But your skill set is determinative upon, a lifetime of achievement. I mean, literally,
Yeah.
you could start when you're 70 and be the best in the world, or you could start when you're 7
Yeah.
and be the best in the world.
Well, it's different skills,
Yeah.
right? So it's not just relative to your gene pool. If you have this strategy mentally, and you can do the high meta game, we call it. So just understanding the game in a way that other players don't. You might come out on top above players that have really fast reaction times, but still don't understand the deep strategy. And that's what I find so interesting about esports is like, you don't need to be 6'5",
Right.
and super naturally strong to have an advantage. Anyone has access to this, whether, like you said, you're young or you're old. And so it's an opportunity for people to get together, to build community, and then compete against each other, which is so natural for human beings.
Yeah, and you said something that was really needed that everybody was worried about, especially with gaming, was community.
Yeah.
Originally the idea of sitting there and playing a game by yourself, what was the tragic part about playing video games
Right.
or gaming at all, right?
Yeah.
Because we weren't outside, we weren't in community, we weren't learning how to interact. And, I love the fact that my kids have friends around the world that they've never met. They communicate all the time effectively.
Yep.
They share inspiration. They share disappointment and excitement, winning and losing, all these different emotional things that we have to learn about. But I actually believe that it's building a community, it's building oneness, that it's not separating what we're doing. How do you feel about that? Because you're in that generation where, it's not as if when you were a little kid, you could be a streamer all the time. You were probably out playing outside in Canada, skiing, skating, whatever you do.
Oh,
and then you've transitioned into, I'm sure a lot of your time is spent, with a headset in a chair.
Headset in a chair, definitely. I mean, I talk to parents all the time now. Actually, anyone that my dad works with, he's always forwarding them to me for questions, because they do get worried about their daughter or son when they're saying that they don't want to go to soccer practice or basketball practice anymore because they want to focus on competitive Fortnite. And I understand, like, when you have the known and it's an unknown world, and there's always issues of privacy coming up and safety, but I love the way that Twitch and gaming and enjoying content brings people together. There's so many kids now who are learning such strong communication skills, leadership skills, like map awareness, deep strategy, like there's
Analytics.
Yeah. Oh, into the 10th degree. It's crazy. And I think all of the skills that you earn in gaming, and when you work together with another person towards an objective, whether it's scoring a goal on the soccer field or capturing the flag in a video game, that's a way that you bond and you learn about the person. And I credit a lot of my leadership skills and communication skills to all the time I spent raiding in World of Warcraft in my teens. And my mom would come into my room and be like, Kristen, like, go outside, your friends invited you to the party. And I'd be leading, a raid group through World of Warcraft and running a guild at like 14. I'm like, Mom, one day I'm going to get paid to play video games. And you mentioned this at the time, that was game testing or game developing, which was still really, really small industries. And now you can use any skill set you have and join the gaming industry, whether it's investing in orgs and running orgs or being a manager of players, a coach, a psychologist, like there's a pro player. I mean, anything.
The one thing, coming from my background in the sports agentry and sports marketing side of things, I don't think anyone's really leading the way of branding someone. So you have an extraordinary following.
Yes.
You're really good at what you do, and you're only going to get better, right? It's not like, it might be great to be 6'5" and have all the athletic ability in the world, but that only lasts so long.
Yeah.
They're not getting better at 38.
No.
Or 48 or 58. So the gaming skills and knowledge are going to be exponentially superior to what they are today, and people like you will be the ones leading it, not just playing, but coaching and developing all types of things. But I don't think we have a grasp on how to monetize or brand KittyPlays, for example, right? In other sports, if someone had a following like you had, or like Ninja, Ninja can say that he made $5 million in a year. He should be making $50 million, right?
Oh, I think he probably will this year.
Yeah, I hope he does.
He's learning how to brand himself more.
And I think the companies were more open to it now too, right?
Definitely, yeah. And we do see a lot of, as everyone's learning about esports individually, also companies are learning about esports. So traditionally, they would go for huge ad buys in media, but that does not have the same level of engagement that influencers, content creators, pro players, and brands online have. So you see a lot of these companies now that they're starting to understand more about gaming, start taking, their $100 million ad buys and putting it on, real creators who have real engagement and real communities that will buy their products. So that's the whole education area as well.
Which is awesome. And one of the things that I've heard is that one of the, I call it the golden handcuffs in the corporate world, but one of the harder things to deal with is as you get a following and you have subscribers and followers in a community, that you're stuck or trapped because you always have to be online, or else you have a dramatic drop in your following or community. Does that actually occur now, or is there a sustainability to that?
I think it depends on the creator, and I think savvy creators recognize that and will make steps to make sure that they have passive income and are investing what they earn and are taking steps every day to not chain themselves up. I definitely felt that way when I was building my brand the first couple years. It was 10 to 12 hours a day every day, and I would burn out every 3 months. I would book myself into the spa for 2 days, go totally like
off the grid,
and then that's the most efficient way for me to get out of burnout. And then I come back and then just do it all over again. But now that you have things like other social media platforms where you can be posting on when you're not directly live on Twitch or posting to YouTube, that helps a lot. And there you do see changes, but the momentum is definitely something that does get lost on Twitch. So actually last year, I ended up taking a year off in my year 4 of streaming. And I came back last February when the Fortnite kind of rise was coming. I was like, this is fun. I really enjoy this game because that's important to love what you do.
Yeah,
so if you're playing a game that you're tied to that you don't love to do, that's
torture.
It is torture.
Yeah.
So I came back with that, and I said to myself, the only way that I'm not going to burn out this year is if I make manage time off. So I streamed 3 weeks a month, and I would travel for a week a month. And that travel for the week a month could not be for business meetings. It couldn't be for coming on a podcast. It had to be.
Come on, this is like vacation.
This
in
is,
here.
I mean, it is. This is a great spot.
Fans over here. This is great.
It had to be like forced relaxation time, so that when I'm relaxing, I'm present, I'm there, I'm relaxing. And when I'm working, I'm asking myself, what do I need to do in these 3 weeks to make it that I'm not going to lose the momentum in my week off? So whether it's scheduling videos or making decisions to work just smarter, made a big difference.
And then you use the term creator, and I know personally what that means, but I know most of the people that are listening, when you say, well, these creators, explain to me what a creator is.
So a creator is anyone that's creating anything on the internet, whether you're creating memes to post on Reddit or live streaming every single day.
Cool inspirational videos like
cool inspirational videos. I think it's just a really broad term that everyone understands the idea of creating. And you are having to be creative when you're creating this content, even though it is, new media creative. So I like the term creator better than influencer, because influencer, it has a lot of negative connotations now, and I think people have kind of sullied the word. But content creator, kind of broad term of anyone creating anything, anywhere.
When I think you get to the value proposition, like I love the word creator. People call me an influencer, and I'm like, well, you actually have to be a creative or a creator to influence people, right? You have to have great ideas or have something to teach or be inspirational to somebody or empower somebody to be an influencer. But in order to do that, first, you have to have good ideas and have to be able to create those.
Creating value.
Create value. And so that's really cool. Now, one of the other things that I've seen in the transition of esports and being a creator within the space of streaming games, et cetera, is that originally it all had to be live. Right. And now they've really picked up on something that I've known about data for years, because I was the CEO of the first smartphone in '99.
That's
7 years out. You were 7, by the way. But I realized that it's one thing to be live, but I was always a big fan of capturing content and editing it and, empowering it, making it even better than real life. Then amplifying it in the appropriate way and perpetuating it so that all 3 realms have value. So you can do something live on a stage. Doesn't even have to be online, right? We can do something live anywhere. I can walk the streets. But if I capture it correctly, I amplify it in the appropriate manner and perpetuate it, I have an annuity. Right? Just like literally an IUL, which is a life insurance policy that gives you an annuity the rest of your life. So every year I get so much money. You actually are just the same as Steven Spielberg creating Star Wars, that, Friends still gets paid for it as it's syndicated. People will go back and watch your content for years and years to come. And because the industry is evolving and the streams of income are evolving, I think what you create today will be worth more money 10 years from now if you have the right perspective, if you capture, amplify, and perpetuate it in the right way.
I love that.
Are you taking those steps right now and thinking in that realm?
I've always thought that way, just from an efficiency of content creation. So it's when I do things that are live, it all gets chopped up into whether it's 30-second clips or 10-minute videos or hour-long VODs, and then that gets promoted. But the perpetuity, I think, is like the hard one. How do you promote it and set it up in a way that you have people that are coming back and consuming that type of content? And what type of content is it? Like, yes, it's humorous and it's fun, but a lot of the stuff with gaming is trending. You know, it's that meta for that week. It's not so much about the podcast ideas of empowerment. And like your success series is fantastic, because no matter what time of the year where the industry is at, it is evergreen.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities in creating evergreen content in gaming, and a lot of people are doing that. And Tyler and I, my social media producer, have done a few of those things already together. But I think that's definitely important to keep in mind. And I do agree that it will always just be providing dividends for the rest of your life.
Yeah, the advantage and disadvantage of what you do are, you know, the different seasons, the different versions, et cetera. So it's difficult on the evergreen side, where I think, you know, you're so exceptional, and just a little bit of, you know, guidance here. I would love to see you be kind of this branding person. The most interesting thing that you've said as a business person in sports, an inspirational person, the most interesting thing, you're so super successful, but while you're talking, thinking about, do I know anybody that can work their butt off for 3 straight weeks and then take a week off and be successful, right? Because it's an odd thing. Like, you know, I teach consistent, persistent pursuit of my potential.
Right.
People say all the time, because I don't believe in work. I believe in activity I get paid for and activity I don't get paid for.
I love that.
And so to take a week break after going after it for 3 weeks is divergent from what I would think would work.
Right.
And so you really piqued a huge curiosity of mine of, what is it like when, okay, I know what the 3 weeks are like, because I live my life that way. I don't, because I have to take a week off at times.
Yeah.
Right. I have 4 kids and a family, and I have to stay present, and I really make the most of it.
Yeah.
And I still stay connected way more than you do during that week, probably, because it gives me solace. But what does it feel like when you get back every month from that 1 week off? Do you feel like economically you took a step back? Is there any step, or is it all just like, wow, I really didn't miss out? Because I'm willing to try this if you tell me, believe it or not, Dave, it's kind of like giving yourself an hour a day to work out. When I first said I'm going to do this, instead of putting my family first and my business second and my health third, I was going to give an hour a day. And I forced myself the same way. An hour a day. And meanwhile, I get more done. More time for my family, more time for my business.
Because your head's straight.
Yeah. Is it the same thing with taking a week off?
100%. Like, for me, at the end of the 3 weeks, I was almost like, oh, I've got so much momentum, I don't want to do this trip. It's like, no, Kristen, you have to. You've booked it. I have 12 different places around the world during that year. And I would just go, and then I'd have that resistance, but then you relax into it. You enjoy the week. I would unplug to a degree. I would still have daily uploaded YouTube content that was recorded the 3 weeks prior. And then by the end of the week, I was ready. You know,
You're too hungry, you missed it.
I missed it, but in both ways. Like, I was still being present, but I was ready to work, because I knew that last week was coming up, and it totally decreased all of the energy I would spend normally in Wanderlust, because I knew that trip was coming. I knew that relaxation, that like time to take care of me, which I believe that our most important thing in our life should be filling ourselves up first, and then giving to our work or activity that was paid, and our family and our friends from overflow, which I think can be achieved when you take the right steps. So that would be my like supercharging. And then I would come at the next 3 weeks with bigger ideas, better brainstorming. I mean, my best ideas to change the meta on Twitch when I was growing and in content creation was spent going on hikes or, you know, in nature. And I would see, oh, that's so interesting how these two things work together. Like, how does this apply to Twitch, or meeting certain people? And so I think it's really important for us to just be diverse as people if we're going to change the industry. And I believe like the most fun value that you can add to the industry is when you're creating change and helping it develop, and just repeating the same steps and routine that the people that you look up to and the ones that are already successful or the ones that have already worked for you are just going to create like, you know, a plateau or not the kind of growth that is possible for you. So
that's awesome. Well, your years of wisdom. You know, I got 2 questions. We're going to go way over on time, but I don't care because you're so interesting. When you, I'm going to take this back because I've now lost the train of thought. This is a great interview, and I'm just killing myself. When you take that week off and recharge, how do you decide what you're going to do for the week off? Because you have to be so into that 3-week period, and it's like that's a 12 big trips or 12 big things to do a year.
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide what to do?
I love the idea of an unfolding life. So that like there's brightness in our life and you kind of unfold it and it reveals itself. So it involves a lot of trust, and I would just let like the universe tell me where I was going. A lot of those flights were booked that day or the next day.
I love that.
Like, or the day before rather. And it would be like a friend Ting Ting calling me up and being like, hey, I'm shooting something in Hong Kong. Like, I'll be there for a couple days. You could overlap your trip with me. I'm like, great, I'll go to Hong Kong this week. That sounds really fun. Obviously having like the financial abundance to be able to book a flight the day before is really important.
So important, right?
It is really important. The freedom that you get from it's insane. And it would just be like wherever, just being loose with it and not being strict with it. There was no program or regime I was following. Sometime, like one of the weeks, I just went home to my parents and I did a total week with no music, no electronics, no TV, no movies, and
no
all
warmth.
All I was allowed was written books
and
a journal, and I did that for a week, and I did a full day in silence too,
really,
with my family. And that day, like, all the ideas that came to me that week, like I came out of that week with 2 new business plans. Like I was like chewing at the bit day 7. I was like, I need to call my friends. I need to tell them about, like, I got to get them in on this partnership with me. We got to build this right now. Like, I have to move on this. But the day of silence, I didn't talk for the entire day around my family.
Have you ever done that before?
I've done it once before.
Wow.
But this was like a true day of silence. And my family knew I was doing it. So like, they wouldn't interact with me and make it harder. But the amount of energy that we spend articulating ourselves every single day, and even responding with noise or with facial, like you're this nod right now,
exactly.
That's a lot of energy. So you get to the end of the silent day and you're like an Energizer bunny. Like, I couldn't go to bed. I had so much energy. It was crazy. So that was another cool realization. But I think
very Buddhist. I love this.
Well, I mean, not subscribing to anything.
Yeah.
You know, like this is.
But that's very Buddhist, not to subscribe to anything. I'll take you downstairs.
This is the Kristen way. Yeah,
I like it. Yeah, that's cool. No,
and what works for me, and it's an ever developing program of testing and new rules and just going with the flow of things. But yeah, there's nothing strict about it. Lots of flow.
You're an extraordinary person. I love this. Now, does Tyler travel with you when you get your week off? Do you do social media stuff?
So Tyler just came on board this early. March. Yeah, he's new to my program.
But do you take someone social media wise? You capture anything on your week?
I would go by myself and I wouldn't vlog it.
Yeah. Good.
Because that would be work. Yeah.
Good.
And even though I love capturing,
I'm going to shift your vision of work from. That's going to be my job to teach.
That would be
you
activity.
Exactly.
That would make me money.
It's just activity, and you're going to learn. I believe that we don't do it. We love.
You
but
live
I can teach
differently.
people to love and literally learn to love what they do.
Yeah.
Because you won't do what you love, but you can learn to love anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all
and
perspective.
the power. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Only because my 9-year-old would kill me if I didn't ask you. And someday I may have you play him because he will just.
I would love that.
He's
play him or play with him.
With him.
Yeah,
for
that'd
sure.
Be great.
Yeah. He would love that. But what's the best piece of advice? You know, with professional quarterbacks and baseball players, everybody's always asking, you know, I want to be one of my favorite stories, Jim Leyris, the World Series hero, changed his whole profession because Johnny Bench, who was his hero, the catcher for the Cincinnati Reds, literally gave him a piece of advice and told him, if you want to make the major leagues, being a catcher is the easiest way to get there.
Oh, I love
and he
that.
shifted his position, and he ended up being, you know, an MVP of the World Series and beating the Braves as a catcher. What piece of advice, if you were the Johnny Bench of streaming gaming, right? Here you are. What piece of advice would you give to a 9-year-old if they aspire to be a professional gamer?
I think it would be to learn how to lose well.
That's a good piece for life,
for
too.
everything. I mean, gaming's so interesting that every piece of advice will translate. Like, obviously, practice is important. Obviously,
Not quitting is important.
Yeah, obviously, watching your favorite top content creators' VODs and reviewing it and see what they do differently and how they can perform better. There's lots of coaching videos online, Reddit threads, whatever it is. But the people that you see on the top and on the top consistently have learned. It's a 100-person lobby that lasts 27 minutes. And over the course of a day, you're going to play a lot of games, and you're not going to win every single one. So learning not to attach to your losses and to just evaluate them well and then be ready for the next game from what you learned in the game past and not to get tilted is the most important thing. And especially with the way that they're doing qualifiers for Fortnite, it's 4 hours of 10 games. And most people don't get to that many because they take a little bit longer. 10 games total, and you got to just do your best in every single one. And if you have 2 great games and then you have a really bad one and you tilt, you're not qualifying. Like, it's okay to have a bad game. There's room for it. So I think just getting great at losing.
What I love about being an owner of a team, investing in the sport, helping to hopefully pave the way for other athletes, participants like yourself, is that the mirror of life to me is that life is about lessons.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And that the lessons, and this is true about the gaming side that I love, is that if I could teach people in life that lessons are going to keep on coming until you learn them. Right? So there's such an evolution while you're playing, and I've watched you as well. Like, you can see an evolution, like you keep making the same mistakes, the lessons keep coming, and then all of a sudden you figure it out, and that lesson is gone. Right? And until you forget it.
In the game, and it's quick. In life, it's a little bit of a bigger cycle, but
And I just love the whole game, just like in life, is just about how many lessons am I going to learn and how can I accelerate and improve. Wow. That's all I have to say about this interview. You are extraordinary. Kristen Valnicek, better known as KittyPlays.
Yes.
You got to check her out. She's extraordinary. More than just as a player. Like, I am in awe of, you're an old soul with extraordinary wisdom and a true entrepreneur, by the way. They'll remember this one from 20 years going, oh my gosh, this is like the Muhammad Ali and Dave Meltzer interview. This is awesome.
That's a big
I'm
comparison.
I'm still a traditional guy. Anyway, we went way over time, but it was so worth it. It may be the longest podcast I've done, but it was worth it. I so much appreciate you, and I hope to see you again, cheer you on, and hopefully help you however I can.
And help change this industry together.
Yeah, you're awesome. KittyPlays, Kristen Valnicek, Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.